For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The United States and European Union are planning major sanctions on Russia on the eve of the second anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and in retaliation for the death of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. The U.S. Treasury Department says it will impose more than 500 new sanctions on Russia and its war machine in the largest single spate of penalties since Russia's war. The U.S. is also threatening a swift and severe response if Tehran moves forward with selling ballistic missiles to Moscow. National Security spokesman John Kirby said Thursday the U.S. will be imposing sanctions on Iran in the coming days for its efforts to supply Russia with drones and other technologies. The latest figures from Ukraine's national police show more than 30,000 people have been reported missing during 2 years of war. Among them are military personnel, civilians, and children. The International Committee of the Red Cross says since February of 2022, its team has been contacted more than 100,000 times by families searching for their loved ones. They endure excruciating uncertainty, not knowing where their loved ones are or if they're even alive. Pro-Ukrainian rallies are planned in cities across the U.S. from New York and Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles and San Francisco this weekend, marking the second anniversary of the Russian invasion. Suzanne Potter reports.
Advocates are pressing the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to relent and allow a vote on aid to Ukraine. Johnson says he's holding up the $61 billion weapons aid package because it doesn't address security on the U.S. border. However, he rejected just such a deal in recent weeks. Pro-Ukraine advocates argue that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin will threaten other democracies if this invasion succeeds. Ukrainian-American Igor Trigub is a member of elected officials to protect America. He says the world can weaken Russia by refusing to buy its oil and gas.
It is our moral obligation to ensure that authoritarian, despotic states like Russia become failed petrostates. The way to do that is to divest from life-destroying fossil fuels and invest in sources of renewable energy.
EOPA is calling for a so-called Energy Security Marshall Plan that would help Ukraine rebuild its economy with clean energy technologies. I'm Suzanne Potter.
Israel's prime minister released a 2-page post-war plan for Gaza late Thursday that seeks open-ended occupation of the enclave, annexation of parts of the Palestinian territory, calling it a buffer zone, control of the Rafah border, and full demilitarization, then reconstruction. It also calls for an installation of a government with local leadership not connected to Hamas or countries that support terrorism. The Palestinian Authority, which administers pockets of the Israeli-occupied West Bank, denounced Netanyahu's plan as colonialist and racist. At the United Nations Security Council Thursday, the head of the group Doctors Without Borders appealed for a ceasefire in the war after ex-medics were killed by Israeli airstrikes Wednesday.
For 138 days, we have watched the systematic obliteration of a health system we have supported for decades. We have watched our patients and our colleagues be killed and maimed. This situation is the culmination of a war Israel is waging on the entire population of the Gaza Strip. A war of collective punishment, a war without rules, a war at all costs.
Christopher Lockyer said children as young as 5 years old say they want to die after being found in Gaza without surviving family. He then blasted the U.S. for blocking ceasefire resolutions. In Gaza, Israeli airstrikes in the center and south of the territory hit residential homes, killing at least 68 Palestinians overnight and today, according to health officials. Among the dead are children and women. Another 24 bodies remain trapped under the rubble. In the U.S., in Alabama, a growing number of in vitro fertilization service providers say they'll stop the procedure after the state Supreme Court ruled frozen embryos are legally considered children. 3 IVF providers have already paused services: Alabama Fertility Services, the Center for Reproductive Medicine at Mobile Infirmary, and the University of Alabama at Birmingham Health System. The Biden administration blasted the Alabama Supreme Court's decision this week. Democrats say it's the latest curtailment of reproductive freedom since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last year. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Thursday.
Since that ruling came down, we have seen states across our country, thankfully not Michigan, but states across our country proposing and passing laws that criminalize doctors and nurses. Some provide for prison for life, for healthcare professionals providing reproductive care to their patients. We have seen laws being passed that make no exception even for rape and incest.
The Alabama Supreme Court ruling quotes the Bible and has also sparked alarm amongst advocates for church and state separations. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.